Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a truly fascinating set of sources that unpack an economic ripple effect. This wasn't some slow-moving trend, though. It was a rapid transformation, really, a consumer movement that cascaded from a single policy decision and reshaped entire markets.
Indeed. Our mission for this deep dive is to dissect how a seemingly conventional national trade policy ignited an unexpected, profoundly grassroots response. We'll trace the initial triggers, explore the, well, surprising methods of resistance, and uncover the far-reaching consequences. And these were ultimately driven by the collective actions of, everyday individuals.
Yeah, what's particularly compelling about the material we've gathered is how a situation analysts really expected to unfold over years instead happened almost overnight. It's quite striking.
It really is a powerful example of consumer power flexing its muscle in our hyper-connected world.
So let's unpack this. Our story really kicks off with President Donald Trump's very public vow. He aimed to impose a significant 35% tariff on all Canadian goods, slated to begin on August 1st.
Right. And just for context, a tariff is basically a tax on imported goods. The idea is usually to make foreign products pricier, encourage buying local, protect domestic industries.
And this specific move was very explicitly framed as an America First initiative.
Yes. What's immediately fascinating, though, according to our sources, is the visceral and swift reaction. You'd expect markets to brace for impact, sure, but the real brewing storm wasn't just in political capitals or boardrooms.
Where was it then?
It was in kitchens, in grocery aisles, across dinner tables. This wasn't some government-mandated countermeasure from Canada. It was something far more organic and deeply personal.
So how did this proposed tariff translate into action for individual Canadians? The sources describe it as a quiet collective decision.
Right. Not the loud, organized protests you might typically associate with economic grievances. Not at all.
Instead, it was a silent yet incredibly powerful resolve. And it seemed born from what was widely perceived as a sense of betrayal.
Exactly. And to connect this to the bigger picture, you really have to understand the history there. For generations, Canadians had viewed the United States not just as a neighbor, but as a deeply integrated partner, economically, cultural.
Yeah, a very close relationship.
Very. So this tariff, it wasn't merely an economic threat, it genuinely felt like a direct slap in the face. And that prompted a profoundly personal response from citizens. You can almost picture it. A mother in Halifax deliberately choosing local jam, a father in Calgary consciously picking a BC wine instead of one from California.
Or a student in Toronto maybe opting for a Canadian-made jacket. Those small things.
Precisely. Each of these seemingly small acts of defiance became, as the sources put it, a vote cast at the cash register.
And what's remarkable is how quickly this sentiment transformed into widespread action. It wasn't centrally organized, was it? No official campaign pushing it.
No, not at all. It spread like wildfire. Through texts, across digital channels, online communities, even just casual backyard conversations, the core message was remarkably simple and resonated universally. We will support our own.
Okay, this is where the story truly takes an unexpected turn. The main battlefield wasn't a formal negotiating table or some political rally.
No. It was, as the sources vividly describe, the aisles of Loblaws, Sobeys, and Canadian Tire. Suddenly, mundane shopping lists were transformed into instruments of, well, economic and nationalistic purpose.
Wow, so everyday shopping became the front line.
Pretty much. We saw an immediate, palpable shift in consumer behavior. Shoppers who might have previously given little thought to product origins were suddenly actively hunting for the Made in Canada stamp. American packaging, maybe once a sign of familiar quality, it became something to consciously avoid. The transformation was startlingly rapid.
Any specific examples stand out?
Oh yeah, the sources highlight dramatic ones. French's ketchup, specifically made with Canadian tomatoes, it suddenly outsold Heinz. Campbell's soup lost significant ground to domestic brands like Almer, and even the iconic Kraft dinner saw its market share eroded by President's choice.
And it's crucial to grasp this wasn't just about finding a cheaper alternative, right? The sources are really clear on this.
Absolutely. It was deeply personal. It was a visceral, everyday way for millions of Canadians to push back against a policy they viewed as fundamentally unfair and, frankly, disrespectful to a long-standing partnership.
So this raises an important question. How far did this quiet, collective resolve actually go? Was it just groceries?
No, not at all. It extended well beyond the grocery cart. Canadians began challenging each other, online and in person, to switch their preferred beers, to reconsider car purchases, even alter vacation plans.
So bigger ticket items too.
Definitely. Online shoppers actively filtered out U.S.-based sellers. We heard anecdotes of couples trading in American-made SUVs for vehicles assembled right there on Canadian soil.
These weren't grand public demonstrations then, more like millions of small, meaningful acts repeated across the country, day after day.
Exactly. It evolved into this powerful, shared national sentiment turning into a tidal wave of economic choices. And the beauty of it, or the terror, depending on your perspective, was that no one needed to formally organize it.
The message just spread.
Yeah, the message to support Canadian was intrinsically understood and universally acted upon.
So what did the numbers look like? What was the actual economic impact?
Well, the data that emerged was, frankly, staggering. Within just a month of the tariff announcement, polls indicated that an astonishing 98% of Canadians were actively choosing Canadian goods over American.
98%. That's almost total.
It's huge. American brands were, quite literally, systematically abandoned. Provincial liquor boards reported a precipitous 60% drop in California wine sales. Kentucky bourbon, Tennessee whiskey saw similar sharp declines.
60% drop in California wine. Wow. And the overall trade figures.
Imports of American food and goods fell by nearly 40% in just 6 months. 40%. That's a seismic shift.
And Wall Street must have noticed that.
Oh, they noticed. U.S. companies quickly began revising their earnings forecasts downward. They were, as one source put it, reeling from the Canadian exodus and the sudden evaporation of what was once a really reliable market.
So the shockwave hit the U.S. export economy hard?
Directly. Especially sectors like food and agriculture, which had long relied heavily on the Canadian market, orders just vanished. And interestingly, it wasn't government officials blocking things at the border initially. It was Canadian distributors themselves, turning away truckloads of American produce.
So the supply chain itself reacted?
It did. Even online retail giants saw a significant decline in business for their U.S.-based sellers. The auto industry, previously known for its seamless cross-border supply chains, was profoundly disrupted. Consumers demanded Canadian-assembled vehicles.
And iconic brands
Took a hit, like Harley-Davidson, for instance, saw their Canadian sales just evaporate.
So the cumulative effect was a genuine crisis for countless American companies. Market share built over decades just wiped out in weeks.
It really was. This represented a new kind of trade barrier, not one imposed by decree, but built in the minds of 38 million consumers. And for many U.S. industries, this barrier proved, well, impenetrable.
Which led to
Factory slowdowns across America, widespread revisions to business plans. It had real consequences south of the border.
And the pain didn't stop at corporate balance sheets, did it? It spread to communities.
Oh, absolutely. It spread directly to American border towns
Yeah.
and the highways that once bustled with cross-border trade. The world's longest undefended border suddenly became a very real economic divide. Malls in U.S. border cities, once magnets for Canadian shoppers, they became ghost towns, struggling to survive.
And the local impact.
Sales tax revenue
Yeah.
cratered. That forced deep cuts to public services in those communities. The irony was pretty stark. The tariff policy, meant to protect America, was in many cases bankrupting its own towns.
And the human cost.
Immense. Widespread job losses, factory workers, truck drivers, retail clerks, the very people tariffs were supposedly designed to help were often the ones hurt the most.
Faced with this bleeding, American corporations must have scrambled. What did they try?
They desperately tried to mitigate the damage, slashed prices, launched aggressive new marketing campaigns, flooded Canada with ads, trying to win back lost customers.
Yeah.
But our sources make it clear. Canadians weren't swayed. This wasn't about finding the best deal anymore. This was about principle, not price.
So the discounts didn't matter?
Not really. And what's particularly telling is that even sophisticated attempts to de-Americanize brands, things like subtly altering logos, localizing ad campaigns to make products seem more Canadian, they fell completely flat.
They'll saw through it.
Informed consumers saw through the camouflage with, frankly, surprising ease and cynicism. Some companies even resorted to the extreme measure of trying to move production to Canada just to earn that coveted Made in Canada label.
Which must have caused problems back home.
Oh, yeah. That sparked massive outrage back in the U.S. The spectacle of U.S. companies shifting jobs north to dodge a boycott caused by an American tariff was nothing short of a political disaster for the administration.
So ultimately, these efforts failed.
They did. Because the boycott wasn't a marketing problem you could solve with discounts or clever ads. It was a profound breach of trust. Decades of goodwill, painstakingly built over generations, just gone, evaporated.
Okay, so as American brands stumbled, what was happening on the Canadian side?
Well, that's the flip side of the coin. Canadian companies thrived. Local businesses, many of which had long been overshadowed by larger American competitors, suddenly found themselves elevated. They became almost national heroes.
So local businesses stepped up.
Big time. Grocery stores rapidly expanded their local sections. Farmers markets, maybe once a bit niche, became essential hubs for shoppers. The Made in Canada label transformed from just a quiet indicator into a badge of honor, proudly displayed and actively sought out.
And the media played a role.
Absolutely. Canadian media outlets rallied behind the movement, celebrating local entrepreneurs, spotlighting success stories. It became more than just an economic shift. It was a powerful catalyst for a renewed national identity.
Technology helped too, I imagine.
Definitely. Technology played a crucial enabling role. Readily available apps popped up, helping shoppers find Canadian products instantly. Every smartphone became, in essence, a tool for economic patriotism.
So the marketplace itself was permanently changed.
It seems that way. Domestic brands, buoyed by this wave of national support, locked in new loyal customers. They invested significantly in growth, in innovation. The overall Canadian economy, as a result, diversified its trade relationships and grew demonstrably more resilient. In this surprising turn of events, the maple leaf truly soared, as one source put it.
Now, this quiet but incredibly potent boycott didn't just rattle markets, it must have sparked a political firestorm, too.
Oh, absolutely, on both sides of the border. In Washington, the initial reaction was described as disbelief turned to anger. The White House, seemingly unable to grasp the organic grassroots nature of the movement, resorted to simply blaming Canada.
Which probably didn't help relations.
No, in fact, every subsequent attack from Washington only seemed to further strengthen Canadian resolve. It created this self-reinforcing cycle of defiance.
And within the U.S., any political fallout there?
Yes. Politicians from crucial border and farm states, places, feeling the direct economic pain, began to publicly break with the administration. The boycott created a real internal political crisis, effectively pitting nationalist rhetoric against economic reality for many American lawmakers.
And in Canada, how did the government react?
Well, conversely, the Canadian government found itself with new, unexpected leverage in trade talks, backed by an energized and unified public. They seized the moment. They launched Buy Canadian initiatives, strategically strengthened domestic supply chains.
So this crisis forced Canada to rethink its reliance on the U.S.
Fundamentally, trade talks with Europe and Asia, which had perhaps moved at a more leisurely pace before, suddenly accelerated dramatically. The long-term result? A significant surge in Canadian nationalism and a deliberate, strategic pivot away from North American integration. They started looking towards a more diversified global trade footprint.
Stepping back then, the Canadian boycott seems like more than just a trade dispute. It feels like a lesson in modern power dynamics.
I think that's right. In our interconnected world, this incident powerfully illustrates how the will of consumers, when united, can humble even a superpower. It really underscores that alliances depend not just on formal treaties or economic figures,
but on trust.
Exactly. Fundamentally on trust. The sources highlight that the U.S., in this scenario, effectively took Canada for granted. They assumed that long-standing goodwill was some kind of infinite resource.
And this boycott proved otherwise.
Unequivocally. It proved that goodwill is finite. And when that trust is lost, the fallout can be swift, severe, and utterly unforeseen. It suggests the rules of engagement have changed.
How so?
Citizens, armed with information and collective resolve, can now wield economic power directly, bypassing traditional diplomatic channels. Canada's response to the tariff really stands as a compelling masterclass in bottom-up resistance. It shows how smaller nations can effectively push back against policies they see as unfair.
So ultimately, this raises a big question about trust being the most valuable currency in international relations.
I believe it does. The quiet Canadian consumer spoke, And the economic world, and indeed the political world, was definitely watching.
What an incredible deep dive. Really highlights the unexpected power of consumer choice and maybe the surprising fragility of long-standing international relationships.
Yeah, it shows how top-down economic decisions, even those meant to protect national interests, can have these profound, unforeseen consequences that ripple out way beyond what any analyst might predict.
And it truly underscores that economic power isn't solely held by governments or massive corporations, is it?
Not at all. Sometimes the most impactful force lies in those collective, decentralized decisions made at a million cash registers.
Yeah.
Just by individuals choosing where to spend their money.
So what does this all mean for you, our curious listener? As you navigate your own choices in the marketplace, maybe consider how your individual actions, when multiplied by millions, can shape not just market trends, but perhaps even the geopolitical landscape.
It leaves us with a compelling thought, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In a world of increasing interconnectedness and rapid information flow, what other forms of quiet resistance or unexpected shifts might be brewing just beneath the surface, just waiting for their moment to emerge?
A truly thought-provoking question.
Indeed. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and stay well informed.